Hello everyone, Plato here, and today we'll be going over our one-shot Uber Lilith step-by-step guide that'll have your friends going, holy shit! Just kidding, you don't have any friends. Make sure to also follow me on my Twitch at twitch.tv/PlatoBear, as we're always doing our daily free Uber Lilith carries with the titles included. With this one-shot step-by-step guide, you'll entirely avoid all of our mechanics and wonder, wow, is it that easy? Yes, it's that easy. For those that watched my previous step-by-step guide may be wondering, what the heck, Plato? Why didn't you just do this guide in the first place? Well, this method is a bit more gear dependent, and the previous step-by-step guide is my go-to when doing carries and in general because it's just reliable to a T, like a good old Toyota. This guide is more like your fancy sports car or that Ford F-150 compensating for your small penis. Note that I still recommend the initial step-by-step guide if it's your first time doing Uber Lilith, as that version of how we approach the fight is not as gear dependent. Link to the step-by-step guide will be popping up in the top right-hand corner of your screen, as well as in the video description. Let's get started with our skills. We'll be using Bone Splinters to get our essence back. Corpse Tendrils is here for a massive damage and crit chance boost thanks to Grasping Veins. Blood Mist is used to prep our corpses for the initial part of the fight in Phase 1 for that one-shot burst. Corpse Explosion is used to prep our Flesh Eater damage boost and to get a bit of essence back from Grim Harvest. Bone Storm is used in Phase 2 for the extra crit chance, and lastly, we'll be using Bone Spear for our DPS. Moving to our gear, we're using good old Deathless Visage for our helmet. Make sure to socket your armor pieces with rubies for the extra HP. For our chest piece, we're running one with all damage in Bone Skill damage, Physical damage, Intelligence, and flat damage with the Disobedience aspect. You can also use Aspect of the Protector or Might here. I was just too lazy to swap it out. Try to get at least 3 of these damage stats. For our gloves, we have Attack Speed, Crit Damage with Bone Skills, Ranks to Bone Spear, and Crit Strike Chance with the Serration aspect. The 3 stats I'd focus on would be Crit Chance, Ranks to Bone Spear, and Attack Speed for our gloves. Heading to our pants, we're running Temerity. This may be a surprise to some, but when paired with the Conceited aspect, makes quick work of Lilith. Temerity gives us a barrier when we go beyond 100% of our HP for 8 seconds. We simply proc Temerity with our health potion so we can get that massive damage boost with the Conceited aspect. We'll cover this aspect a bit more later when we head to our rings. For our boots, we're running Ranks to Corpse Tendrils, Movement Speed, All Stats, and Intelligence. The aspect here doesn't matter since none of the aspects do anything for the Lilith fight for boots. The 2 stats I'd prioritize for this one-shot method is Intelligence and All Stats for a little bit of extra damage. Moving to our amulet, we have Ranks to Evulsion, Damage, Intelligence, and Essence Cost Reduction. The aspect we want to use here is Grasping Veins for the increased crit chance and crit damage. Our Malignant Heart here is the Dark Dance, and the 2 most important stats on our necklace will be Ranks to Evulsion and Essence Cost Reduction. You can also use Compound Fracture instead of Evulsion. They're basically pretty much identical for this fight. Regarding the other 2 damage stats on our necklace, since our goal is to one-shot her, try to get an amulet with at least 1 more damage stat. That can be Percentage Intelligence, Physical damage, just regular damage, or damage with Bone Skills. Next is our rings. For our first ring, we have Vulnerable damage, Crit damage with Bone Skills, Crit chance, and Max Essence with the Conceited aspect. This, paired with Temerity's Barrier, gives us Omega damage. We're using the Tempting Fate Heart for the extra crit damage here. Since our goal is to one-shot Lilith, please try to at least get the 3 stats I would prioritize in Crit Chance, Max Essence, and Vulnerable damage. Ring number 2, we have Damage to Close Enemies, which is a dead stat for us for this fight, Max Essence, Vulnerable damage, and Crit Chance. Running good old Intercom here, and our heart is a 3.2 second duration Barber. Regarding which Barber duration is optimal for this fight, we'll cover this later in our step-by-step section. I will also have a chapter for this so it's easy to find in the video. Please do not skip to this section right now, as we'll get to it and cover it when needed. Lastly, for our weapon, we have a 2-handed sword with crit strike damage, core skill damage, intelligence, and vulnerable. The aspect we're using here is the splintering aspect, and the 3 stats I'd focus on for our weapon would be intelligence, vulnerable, and core skill damage. You can also swap out core for something like crit damage or crit damage with bone or damage to distance. Ideally, you want the 4 stats, but if you can't, 3 is enough as long as they're the ones I just mentioned. For our sacrifices, we're sacrificing our skirmishers for the extra crit chance. We're also sacrificing our cold mages for the extra 15% damage to vulnerable enemies, and then we're sacrificing our iron golem for the extra 30% increased crit strike damage. Here's a quick look at our skill tree. I will not be going over any of this in detail as it is pretty straightforward. I have not made any changes to this tree from our last guide. Since we don't use Bone Prison, however, for this one-shot version, you can take those 2 points out of Bone Prison and put them into Imperfectly Balanced if you want. I just don't bother because I'm a Giga Chad. Here's a look at our Paragon board. Make sure you order your Paragon board correctly, otherwise you will lose out on the rare node bonuses. This is due to the requirements for the rare node bonuses increasing as we add more boards. Here is the order we want. Our starting board is going to be Sacrificial. Then we head into Bone Graft second and pop in Exploit. Our third board is going to be Scent of Death, where we put on Imbiber. Then our fourth board is going to be Flesh Eater with the Gravekeeper glyph. And finally, our fifth board will be Bloodbath with the Essence glyph. The most important damage buff in our Paragon board that we will need to focus on for this fight is going to be Imbiber for the damage while healthy, and Flesh Eater when consuming 5 corpses. It grants us a 40% increased damage for 6 seconds. We'll get more into this when we go over the fight mechanics. Alright, fight mechanics time. Starting with step 1, pop your resource potion. Remember guys, 50 extra essence is a shit ton of damage as well as crit chance. Step 2. Go into your blood mist so you get your 3 corpses and consume them right away. This is going to stack 3 out of the 5 corpses for our Flesh Eater bonus. Step 3. This is going to be the hardest part about the step-by-step guide. Why do you ask? Well, because we need to be in a specific location to finish the rest of our setup. We need to walk right where I'm pointing my mouse. Make sure to get this position right, as if you're even a bit farther back, the corpse tendrils will miss Lilith and you won't have enough damage. Now, the problem here is, sometimes Lilith will just be a pain in the ass and spawn right away when we get to this spot. This is not the outcome we want. What we want to happen when we get to the spot is for Lilith to do absolutely nothing so we can finish the rest of our setup. What I've found that helps is to just wait about 20 to 30 seconds after entering the arena before moving to this spot. This usually makes it so she doesn't spawn right away, which is what we want. Step 4. Stand in our spot and blood mist again so we can drop 3 more corpses. Step 5. Consume 1 more corpse so that our Flesh Eater bonus is now at 4. This is so we can prime our damage boost after we pop our 5th corpse for that 40% increase in damage. Make sure to also wait out our Fueled by Death bonus here before we move to step 6. I just do this as a bit of a tinfoil and it's just a good breather before we go hard. Step 6. Walk to where I'm pointing while popping a potion for Temerity. This will give us the barrier from our Temerity so we can get that extra damage bonus from Conceited. Lilith will spawn and knock us back to our good old spot. Step 7. When Lilith knocks you back, pop your corpse tendril from the corpses we set up earlier for the extra crit chance and damage, as well as popping our 5th corpse for our Flesh Eater bonus, and spam your Bone Spears right away, while also popping another potion for our Barrier Uptime for the damage bonus with Conceited. It should take 7 to 8 Bone Spears to legit one-shot her, as you can see. Enjoy never having to deal with the mechanics on the first phase. Step 8. Now we need to get our essence back. When Lilith pops, she'll leave us a blood blister behind as a present. Feel free to bone splinters this blister until it's dead to get our essence back. Step 9. Now that the blister is dead, consume 4 more corpses to set up our Flesh Eater, as well as get a bit more essence back thanks to the Grim Harvest node from our skill tree, and wait for her to do her phase 2 spawn animation. Note that we have not moved from our original starting spot. Remember that positioning is super important, so do your best to just stand there if you can. I know this can be a bit more cumbersome on console, but don't worry, I'll have a run with my controller for reference at the end of the guide. Step 10. Once she starts to do her phase 2 spawn animation, you can pop a potion here for our Temerity Barrier and for the Conceited aspect. When she forms about half of her second wing, pop her Bone Storm into Corpse Tendrils into Corpse Explosion for our Flesh Eater bonus, then just hold your Bone Spear and pop another quick potion. Boom. She's 1 HP, enjoy just AFKing on the platforms and dealing the finishing blow when she's done with her platform dance. A few important notes here. If you have a higher duration Barber, your timing will have to be pretty spot on. You'll know you messed up on the timing if you see Blood Blister spawning even after getting her to 1 HP in phase 2. This will happen if the Barber pop was delayed even a fraction of an amount, so yeah, timing is super key here. From the testing I've done, the most optimal Barber kinda just depends on how much damage you have initially. If you have slightly lower damage, a higher Barber will be a bit more beneficial, but you'll have to be tighter on your timings. If you have a good amount of damage, then a slightly lower Barber will be more optimal to better avoid the late pop for the risk of spawning the blood blusters into the ghosts. For me, a 3.2 Barber works best, but I can also use up to a 4.0 Barber to see higher damage numbers. Note that we don't want to go too low, say like a 2.4 second Barber, as this will pop Lilith too fast in the first phase and she'll fly up right away. test around with your Barber and see which one works best for you. Here is the full PC fight in real time. The controller fight in real time will be right after this one. You can also skip to it via the chapters in the video description. That's it for this one, you guys. Please remember that I still recommend the initial step-by-step guide if it is your first time doing Lilith, as that version of how we approach the fight is not as gear dependent. As always, subscribe and hit that notification bell if you enjoyed the video. I'd also appreciate a follow on my Twitch at twitch.tv/PlaterBear, where we do our free daily Uber Lilith carries with the titles included, and also our T100 Nightmare clears. Till the next one, peace.
To regret this mistake.